17th verse, which we did last, spoke about following rituals mechanically. As I've said, rituals are mere symbols, mere practices, which are essential to every spiritual practice. It's essential to embrace for every practitioner because it serves a very clear purpose. When you say rituals are mere symbols, what it means that it has a symbolic representation, it has a deeper connotation, they convey something beyond the mere idols. Symbols are mere idols. Idols are representative. An idol represents the ideal, the purpose, the significance. So when we don't question the significance or the importance of the rituals, the idols, the symbols, we are holding on to the exterior. We are holding on to the mere skeleton of these rituals. They don't serve any purpose. The rituals become non-essential, and then you go about practicing them mechanically. But on the contrary, when you question these rituals, when you understand these rituals have a significant role, rather an essential role in one's spiritual association, you would optimize their role in one's life. The very same ritual becomes an essential tool to draw your attention to the higher. It inspires you. It becomes a tool for your own self-purification, self-evolution. Now, in the verse, there's a mention of a couple of those rituals. He says, one visits where the Ganges meets the ocean, sort of going to a spiritual pilgrimage. Now, what is the objective of taking a pilgrimage? What is the symbolic representation? What is it that you gather from taking a pilgrimage? We find come the month of November, December, you find scores of people, they take a journey, having practiced 40 days of austerity. They go to Lord Ayyappa in Shabarimala, isn't it? And many people take various spiritual journeys. But what is the objective of taking a spiritual pilgrimage? What's the symbolic representation? Many of us have taken to many such practices and pilgrimages. What's the symbolic representation? Obviously, it's not an avenue for entertainment. It is not sightseeing, obviously. It's not tourism. Today, spirituality has become a biggest tourism, isn't it? But what do you gather? What do you learn from taking a spiritual pilgrimage? Obviously, when you go on or take a pilgrimage, you don't want to carry your comforts and luxuries along with you, your conveniences, whatever you're used to your life. So you will have to adapt to the challenging situation, whatever you have to adapt to in different climatic conditions. You'll have to adapt to different comforts, whether you have food to your palate, whether you have comforts, you'll have to forgo them. So you are putting yourself through what is known as tapas. Tapas is where you're willing to sacrifice the lower for the higher. As Hariji rightly said, it is self-imposed. It's not something you're being administered. You're not being pushed to do it. It's a self-imposed discipline you get onto. So you want to get rid of the lower so that you're able to embrace an appreciation for the higher. So you're not carrying your homely comforts. Also, you learn to develop a spirit of detachment to your objects. You're away from your home, you're away from your work, you're away from your near and dear. So that mental worry and concern, you're able to forcibly practice that detachment because you're physically away. And you also learn to appreciate that all will be well and they don't need me. It's only my belief that they need me. All will be well. In fact, it's better off in my absence. Abba, this fellow has gone. So you think you are more important. No, nobody needs you. It's all self-created, self-imposed. But the moment they know that you're coming back, Adikappa, this fellow is coming back. Huh? So it is just a mental attitude you cultivate, an attitude of detachment. Is there anything else that I'm saying the journey has a deeper significance. So what do you gain from pilgrimage? It's something you'll have to apply yourself to it. Any inputs? What do you think you gain from taking any pilgrimage? God, not that God is more present there and less present here, please. Don't be convinced by that thought that it's certain places are more divine and certain places are less divine. It's all in your own conditioning from the highest truths known to mankind. One of the highest truths we have to all come to terms with, that God is all pervading. It is there in the places where you least suspect. It is very much there, as much there as it is there in the places where you have invoked it or where you can attune to it. It's just that I don't have the perception to see. Don't you remember the famous episode of the great Prahalada? Hirenji, you've heard of Prahalada? He said, obviously, sir.
Yes.
Where did he find the great Lord?
In that, what do you call, stump?
A pillar.
Pillar, yeah.
So in the most unexpected places, what is it trying to signify? It is everywhere. It's just that you don't have the eyes to see.
That's right.
In fact, everybody challenged him because Prahalada was so convinced that the Lord is everywhere. Such a sweet little boy, was so attuned to the self, to the Lord Vishnu, the ever-present, all-pervading Vishnu. And he was challenged to think, is it there? It is very much there. They broke the pillar and the great Narasimha, Lord Narasimha came on. So it's just trying to establish the fact that God is not, it doesn't have pockets of manifestation. It is
everywhere,
universal. It is not preferential. It is all pervasive, isn't it?
Yes.
It's just that I don't have the eyes to see. So obviously don't tell that I'm taking a spiritual pilgrimage because that's a spiritual place. I don't get into arguments with people when they say that place is more divine. Whatever you say, Guruji, that place is very special. When it comes to those areas, I just keep quiet. I have nothing to say. You feel special in a particular place. It's not that in any less here. I'm only saying it's not in any less here. You mean to say that the divinity can be confined to the sanctum sanctorum alone? Do you mean to say divinity is confined to the walls of place of worship or temple, church, and mosque? Don't tell me it doesn't exist beyond it. In fact, divinities beyond those places of worship. How spiritual you are is tested when you're not in those moments of so-called spiritually induced environments. How spiritual you are is tested beyond them, isn't it?
Right.
Not at that moment. So again, I'm only trying to tell that ritual of you embarking on a pilgrimage by itself has no meaning unless until you understand what is the purpose you have embarked on it. But one who does it merely, as he says, proceeds where the Ganges meets the ocean, you observe strict vows, etc. 100 lives thus, you live 100 lives, a life bereft of this knowledge. By all schools of thought, such a person attains no liberation. You will have no good. You'll do no good to yourself if you live 100 lives thus. Now, another point here he mentions is of charity. Many of us have embarked on this exercise of being charitable. We have a charitable disposition where you do great charity, whether it's material, physical, emotional, intellectual, or even be spiritual charities. Now, why should, again, here is an act of ritual, but what's the significance of performing charity? Every religion advocates it. Some religions have imposed it as a condition. For example, in Islam, isn't it? In Islam, it is a condition. So they are forced, as it were, and out of fear, people do it. I know not. They understand the deeper significance of why should one perform charity. Certain religions are not imposed. Hinduism certainly is not a religion which imposes itself. It's just a way of life. But one who adopts to lead a life of charity, why should one take to life of charity? We can't say, oh, my grandfather did great charity. My father also has been continuing. So I have not left with any choice because they already have established banner and it has been decided. So I just carry on the good work, G. I don't know why I do, but we do it. Is that the reason why you're doing something? Because it has been set a tone by the predecessors? Or we should always do some good, no? The society needs it, no? Arey, no? Why should you do charity? Let's question it. As I said, when you don't question these rituals, your exercise becomes mechanical. You're already got into the non-essentials. The Vedantic knowledge contained in these rituals are the essentials. So your interaction or your association with these rituals or the practices is meant for you to extract this essence. It's like there's honey in the flowers. The bee just goes and extracts the essential honey. Rest of it is, it's good though, it's beautiful. It has a fragrance, but that's not the real essence. The bee is only interested in the honey. So what is the significance of performing charity? Why should one do charity? Hari Om Anandji.
Hari Om ji.
Good to have you, sir. Welcome to Hyderabad.
Ninochanandi.
Makandi del sir.
Mika.
Live update.
Annayatho maatladunara meeru?
Yes, sir. Maatladan roju ledhu, sir. Sir, if I can get your thoughts, why should one do charity?
It's not necessary.
The Shastras recommend us to do charity. You are questioning it. Why should we? Not necessary at all?
It's not necessary. I mean, it is. Some people do charity because it makes them feel good. Some people do charity because they want to share, because there is an altruistic goal. but one has to do it when it comes from himself, from the within, where he wants to help a fellow brethren, human being. To me, that is a more important goal rather than just doing it just because you have to do it. It has to
Correct.
come within you rather than because someone told you to do so.
Correct. So it's not that we are doing mechanically or blindly because it has been said by someone. We need to understand the deeper significance, isn't it? Like once you are convinced with it and it has an inner chord, it connects within you, the significance and the purposes, you take it very naturally, isn't it?
Yes.
Not because it is being said somewhere. We wouldn't follow something because it's been said for 10,000 years. That doesn't make it true,
Correct.
isn't it?
Yes.
In fact, even buildings which are more than 100 years old are put down. Just because it's old doesn't mean it is right. Don't you pull down an old building and put up a new skyscraper? Yeah, I think just because it's old doesn't mean it is any great. So we are taking a fresh perspective to it. Right, sir? I get what you said. RPG, any reasons why one should take to charity?
I think it's part of the journey, right? So it's part of the Vedantan or the seeker's role along the way, right? Is to support the cause that he or she uses as the lever to get to the self. So that charity, and you have to be very careful, right? So you have to I think Anandji, be that sort of discriminative analysis to say, does this support my journey, and does it also afford others opportunity to join me and join others on that journey? So it's really a duty. It's your duty to provide as you yourself continue your down your path.
All right. Okay. All right. Let's hear from others. Yes, Ji. Yes, Reddy Garu.
Namaskar, Pranam. In my view, sir, charity is something more on self. It's as Mr. Anant has been mentioning that it's your own call. The situations calls for you, being you emotional to the other concerns, the challenges somebody goes through, where you have ability to stretch and help, given a helping hand, whichever may the manner which could be. Somehow I'm not really convinced that Shastra's reason beyond that one has to practice charity. It's all evolve among your own abilities and your own emotions, your own thought process. That's my view.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? Yes, Hariji.
For my living in this world, I have been getting always from others, not only from human beings, even from the nature. The very fact that I am able to live by breathing oxygen means that the nature has been giving. And I cannot be only a receiver. I have to show my gratitude that even a morsel of rice that I am eating, hundreds and thousands of people have worked on it so that that morsel of rice is produced. So it is my bounden duty to repay. It's a sense of gratitude.
Correct. An attitude of gratitude, a sense of gratitude. Yes. It is not in as much as doing an act of charity. I think we should not be mistaken by when they say is to be charitable is not to perform acts of charity. It's to have an attitude of being charitable, is to be having a charitable disposition in every walk of the way. Even if you have to forgive another person for their wrongdoings, you must be charitable in your thought. You must be accommodative in your thought, isn't it? In fact, if you look at nature, everything in nature is functioning on the principle of giving. Everything. No conditions asked, no conditions laid. It just does. Only for the sake of sheer, in fact, is rather interesting. In fact, I got hold of a few lines. I don't want to surrender to the great saying of Khalil Gibran. I think I'll try and share them now in your chat box. So just try and follow that. It is just an excerpt of what Khalil Gibran had said. Now, it's not the entire text, but just an excerpt. He says, "It is well to give when asked, but it is better to give unasked through understanding. And to the open-handed, the search for one who shall receive is joy greater than giving." I repeat that. To the open-hearted, the search for one who shall receive is joy greater than giving. Means looking for one who can receive. Who can I be of helpful? Who can I be of service to? That thought is far greater than the very act of giving, he says. And there is aught you would withhold. All you have shall someday be given. Therefore, give now, that the season of giving may be yours and not your inheritors. You often say, I would give only to the deserving. Now, I wanted to come to this section, the last section. The trees in your orchard say not so, nor the flocks in your pasture. They give that they may live, for to withhold is to perish. Everything in nature is functioning with the fundamental principle of giving. The trees in your orchard, if they were to withhold the fruits and flowers, you would not survive, I would not survive. If the sun were to withhold its luster and brilliance and luminosity, what would be life without the sun? If the clouds don't give rain, what is life without water? If the earth doesn't yield vegetation, season after season, it continues to yield. For some reason, let's say the earth stops yielding vegetation, what would be life? We will cease to exist. You know, many people don't understand how significant are these bees in how, I don't know how many of you are aware of it. The bees are one of the most essential in pollination of a forest, of livelihood, of the sheer forest thrives on the honeybees. So we don't understand how delicately nature is balanced. Everything is giving. And only species that doesn't necessarily give is a human. And wherever there is an attitude of taking, the moment you are a taker, you will find yourself, you perish. You are in loggerheads with everything else around you. You are in conflict with the world. So much so the Shastras say, the Gita says, this knowledge is not designed for the non-sacrificers. This knowledge is only designed for the sacrifices. So let me ask this fundamental question. Reddy Garu, you are an industrialist. You have an institution. You have, let's say, 500,000 employees. So you have employed every individual for the purpose that this man would bring his talent and advance the cause of the organization or the institution, isn't it?
Yes, yes, good.
Would you permit or would you accept that people come and start using the resources, abusing the resources for their own self-benefit? Is that acceptable by your institution?
Not at all. Not at all.
So would you not say this job you are being given is only given with the purpose that you serve the organization? Isn't that an understood norm?
Absolutely.
Do you have to spell it out?
May not be, because our actions speak for it.
Your action should speak. The objective for which you have been given a job is to serve the organization, which means you must be a giver from the day one. Every movement, every walk of the way, you must serve the organization. It's understood. You can't go into an institution to abuse and benefit yourself from the organization. Let's say, sir, theoretically, if every individual, right from the top to the bottom, are abusing the institution for their own self-benefit, what would happen to that banner?
That's true.
What would happen to such a banner?
It sinks in no time. Like what we are saying, the greed which has been developing across the humanity, it's creating a pain to the earth and the planet.
It is destroying. Such organization will not last. And if the flame of the organization has to continue to shoot and rise, each one has to offer their talents into the organization. Whatever they can bring, offer that talent to the flame of the organization so that the flame shoots and everybody is benefited.
That's right.
So even a normal job you pick up, you're expected to give. You're not supposed to do any charity, give, let's say I'll give 10% of my salary. It's not that we're talking about. It's to have that spirit of giving. It's to operate. Every action is to be a sacrificer, not a taker. I have to be a giver, not a taker. So when they say charity, it is not to do acts of charity, but to develop an attitude of charitable disposition. It is to be worthy of in fact, read the lines there. We often, in fact, I don't know whether that line is here. It says, no, you often say, I would only give to the deserving. In fact, in the later half of that section, he says, make yourself worthy of a giver first. It's very difficult to be worthy of a giver rather than saying, I would want to give only to the deserving. Am I worthy of a giver? Am I a giver first? So when you take to a life of charity, what are you achieving here? Firstly, Hariji said, you develop an attitude of gratefulness. What it is to be living a life of ingratitude. What it is to have this quality of ingratitude. Siddharaman sir, can you please?
Hari Om Guruji. Yeah.
Yes, sir. What it is to have this quality of ingratitude?
Ingratitude, we become a taker rather than a giver. And that is, we become very selfish. We have to, on the other hand, I will say giving and sharing, not only we express gratitude, it brings a lot good to us. I say for our own sake, we should give. It brings a lot of joy, lot of fulfillment and meaningful life. We have to do voluntarily, but I feel it does equally good to the person who is giving.
But would you do for the sake it is doing good to you?
No, it automatically brings. We have to, yeah. The goal should not be that it is just to bring that, but I am saying it's a byproduct of it.
It is a byproduct. You don't give for the sake of joy. Joy is a byproduct of your giving. If you give for joy, that means it's a business transaction. Because I find joy, I'm giving. Then it is, in fact, selfish. I feel so good in giving. There's a motive in giving. If you give because that's the only way life is. Because to withhold is to perish. So I give so that I grow. I in the sense, not ego. So you don't give that because the recipients are benefited.
What I mean to say, Guruji, those who are forced to give, they won't get joy. Those who give, automatically they get hooked to it. They want to give, they want to share more and more. That is our true nature.
No, I understand and I get exactly what you're saying. But I'm just trying to get to a specific point, whether you give for the sake of joy, or is the joy the reward of your giving?
It's a reward of giving.
It should be the reward of your giving, not to be given for the sake of joy. And you don't give because the recipient needs it. Never ever think I'm giving for the sake of the recipient. You are giving because if I don't give, if I am not a giver, I remain selfish. I am a taker. So I am giving only to purify my selfishness. I am developing a charitable attitude so that I get rid of my selfishness. I get rid of my ego. So that you annihilate your ego and vanity. You're not trying to barter, trade, or fame through charity. There is a document which I would require, Ravindraji, if you could just put it up for us, and it will be shared with you all so that you can fall back on it. It was something which we had discussed a while ago. Right. So the title we have given it is The Elements of True Service. So the various types of givers you find in life, let me read through it. Some give little when they give of their possessions. It is when you give of yourself that you truly give. There are those who give it for recognition with a hidden desire or a hidden motive. They're doing it to merely satisfy their personal appetite. And such gifts make it very unwholesome. Some have little and give it all. These are the believers in the bounty of life. Their coffers are never empty. Those who truly give, they're never short of giving. Some give with joy, and joy is the reward. Now, what it means is you don't give to gain joy. Rather, there should be joy in giving. Your joy should be the springboard of giving. So joy is not what you're seeking out of it. They're two different things. Mark that fourth point, which I was trying to clarify. And there are those who give with pain, and pain is their baptism. Baptism is something which you enter, you introduce into a spiritual life, entry into a life of giving. And there are those who give and don't know the pain in giving, nor give with mindfulness of virtue. They don't consider it as an act of virtue, with no axe to grind. They just merely spread the act of fragrance of giving for the benefit of others. Some say, and this is what I quoted, some say I would give to the deserving, and so on. Yes, sir. Scroll down further, please, sir. And then the non-givers, their argument is this. A true giver waits for opportunities to give. He doesn't sit and judge whether the recipient is worthy of receiving. And then there are the various elements. See first yourself to be a giver, an instrument of giving. Yeah, further scroll down, sir. It must be given at the right place and the right time. You must always, I keep remember saying this often, must feel a pinch when you give. Somebody said earlier, You should not take to giving as an excuse to part with unwanted things. Oh, all my old clothes have been lying in the cupboards are occupying space. Let me give them away. And you part them with it thinking you've done charity. It is not charity. And so on, and true. And Sidhuji said, a little up, sir, please. Further, could scroll down, sorry. Point 7, Sidhuji was saying, giving not only benefits the donor, it also transforms the donee. So not only the donor, donee, both of them are transformed. And so on. So this will be shared with you all. You can, it helps you to fine tune if you are a giver. And I hope it convinces you to live a life of giving. But if you are a giver, it has a great impetus. It has great tools to fine tune your giving. So again, I'm only trying to examine a couple of rituals that are being prescribed and practiced, but you must get into that spirit, why you should do it, for what you should do it. All right.